Have you ever stopped to think about what actually occurs when you give up on a woman? Welcome to today's in-depth look at one question that many of you have probably been wondering is, if you're navigating these waters right now or have already experienced this. And today we are investigating the fascinating dynamics of what truly happens when you choose to withdraw and stop speaking. More importantly, as a male, how can you use this circumstance to reclaim your dignity and self-assurance? And in this video, we'll reveal the common responses women may experience when the pursuit is over and how their emotions and actions could change. But there's a catch. We'll be using the timeless Stoic knowledge. To assist us in navigating these situations, Stoicism instructs us on resilience, emotional regulation, and the ability to take a step back and evaluate our considering life from a wider angle by using these ideas. You can learn to maintain your composure and confidence in the face of uncertainty. Or quietness from a loved one. Join us as we analyze these private experiences and exchange techniques to not only survive, but also thrive and discover a deeper feeling of self-worth via the philosophy of Stoicism. If this conversation piques your curiosity or speaks to your currently, please feel free to like this video and follow our channel for additional interesting material, and click the bell symbol to ensure you don't miss an okay. Let's get going. First, the first shock and one. First shock and perplexity. One of the first things you'll notice when you quit chatting to a woman is a sudden feeling of shock or bewilderment. This is entirely normal communication on her part, which used to be constant, or even regular has abruptly stopped. She can begin to question what occurred, why you've stopped talking, and why you doubt her own behavior or even her. It's a time of uncertainty for her in your life and could lead to a range of feelings, from curiosity to annoyance. But this is where Stoicism comes in. May provide clarity. One of the main lessons of Stoicism is to concentrate solely on about how we might influence our own ideas, deeds, and reactions. You see her, you cannot and should not attempt to resolve perplexity or shock. You have no authority over her thoughts or feelings when you stop speaking, and Stoic beliefs state that it is useless to expend energy attempting to control another person's emotional reaction. Effort rather than concentrating on what you can manage, keeping your emotional equilibrium, maintaining your poise, and considering your own actions. Suppose if you have been the one to start discussions, send messages, or make plans over time, you observe that the dynamic seems out of balance. Perhaps you feel as though, because you're pursuing her or providing more than you're getting, you choose to pull back and stop initiating right away, or she could question why. The confusion arises since he isn't speaking to me anymore. Yet instead of jumping in to provide justifications or make an effort to ease her feelings while embracing the quiet. Not only is this a significant moment for her, but silence can be one of when used purposefully. Your greatest assets are created by taking a step back. Room for her to think about how she feels, and for you to get your silence is an opportunity rather than an empty abyss, as Center Stoicism tells us. You might examine your own feelings during the pause to get clarity and reflection. Letting go of the desire to chase or look for approval, you remain steadfast not because apathy, but from an understanding that you have no influence on her response. She often has her own thoughts and feelings when a man quits pursuing her, or speaking with a woman enables her to consider the dynamics of the relationship and determine whether she genuinely values the relationship. Your quiet might make her reconsider her own role and behavior, but more significantly, you're providing yourself with the opportunity to consider whether this pursuit fits with your own principles and dignity, as the Stoics held extrinsic factors, such as whether someone pays attention to you, should not dominate your inner tranquility. You maintain emotional self-control regardless of nobody else comprehends or responds as you may anticipate. And the beauty of this strategy is that it enables you to remain loyal to yourself by not pursuing. By avoiding rash reactions, you project emotional stability and self-respect. By being independent, you're proving that your mental health is not dependent on her response lays the groundwork for your own power. When you are in charge of your own mental state and are not affected by outside factors. Now that we've looked at how the initial shock and disorientation can occur, it doesn't matter what noise is around you. Let's pause to consider the more profound Stoic principle at work. Control is realizing that the only person you can actually control yourself, and that change of emphasis from seeking approval from others to finding inner peace is why maintaining your sense of calm is so effective with this method. You're influencing the whole dynamic of your life, not just how you feel right now. Exchanges. If this strikes a chord with you, leave a comment with your ideas or just typing "I choose inner peace" beneath your support keeps the debate going. Continuing, and before we move on to the next one, I'd love to hear your viewpoint. 2. Considering the relationship second insight. Consider the connection when you stop communicating or pursuing a woman. She may be perplexed or taken aback because people often react when suddenly a familiar dynamic shifts in her mind, and she might begin to relive the events. Discussions and exchanges to try to figure out what caused the change this. She reflects on what went wrong and questions her role in the situation during this time, and wondering if she was responsible for the stillness. But the secret from a Stoic standpoint is this. It's ideal for you to think back on the relationship while she's thinking back on it, rather than what way she's thinking or responding. But Stoicism reminds us that we should only pay attention to what we can manage, which includes your ideas. Take a step back and consider your responses and actions. Regarding the relationship, did you uphold your moral principles while you were together? Did you act in a genuine manner, or were you pursuing something? A Stoic would remind you that your value doesn't derive from pleasing or winning her approval, from your own dedication to living, not from how much someone else thinks of you in line with your values if you were continuously trying to get her attention. Or this is an excellent time to consider why you sacrificed your own needs. Was it because you were afraid of being alone and believed her approval was if you were texting her, it would be a reflection of your own worth? Always taking the initiative to make arrangements and always looking for her attention. So when you step back and put an end to this behavior, she'll probably notice. But use this moment to gaze instead of waiting for her response or worried about whether she will return. Did you violate your own limits or principles in order to get her attention? Did you lose yourself in the process? Simply to keep in touch, if so, this is a chance to. In Stoicism, recalibrating self-reflection involves admitting where you might have deviated from your actual self and are determining how to develop from. Perhaps you'll learn from experience that you were overly preoccupied with getting her approval and not sufficient effort to uphold your own dignity. Or perhaps you realize that you were sacrificing too much of who you you only need to maintain the relationship. There is no room for remorse or self-blame. Instead, use this opportunity to become more robust and powerful. Version of yourself rather than obsessing on her thoughts or behavior. Reacting and concentrating on your own personal development is where TR power is found. The capacity to grow from every experience and become a better version of oneself. Although it's outside of your control, a woman may think back on the relationship and possibly even change her mind about her sentiments or behavior. What you can control is how you decide to react at this moment. Of silence, will you utilize it to develop yourself and become more aware of your own needs and ideals? A Stoic person wouldn't just sit around instead. They would wait for a text or hope for a reconciliation. Accept the chance to improve their character and gain a better knowledge of their true desires. And when you stop pursuing your happiness, you stop placing it in life and relationships. Stoicism is the ability to regain your own power when it's in the hands of another person. Encourages us to discover contentment and serenity inside ourselves, rather than seeking approval from others. Constant dedication to upholding our ideals. So when she considers what occurred, your attention ought to be on how you may develop what you've discovered and how you can put those teachings into practice going forward. This is the way to achieve true inner peace and esteem for oneself that is independent of whether she returns 3. Examining limitations. The third is testing boundaries, which can take many different forms. For example, she might send a casual SMS unexpectedly, or she shares something on social media that she knows will grab your attention. She may even attempt to agitate circumstances in order to determine if you will respond or revert to the dynamic where you pursued her nonstop. Yet this conduct isn't always malevolent. It's frequently really a means of determining your position or determining whether she still has control over your attention in these situations. And many men make mistakes. Of emotionally responding, they experience an unexpected spike of anxiety about losing her. For genuine concern that their silence has backfired or that she is moving on. Because of this dread, they act swiftly and reply to her message right away. They fall for her bait and pursue her once more. But the problem is that when you do this, you're responding out of insecurity rather than strength, which is where Stoicism comes in. Becomes crucial when a Stoic man realizes that his power originates from he is firmly rooted in his values and is not swayed by the caprices of when a woman pushes your limits after you've stopped pursuing her, she's probably trying to find out if she can still affect your actions. But a Stoic man remains unwavering, understands that his own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are what he can control. Her actions, thoughts, and decision to stay or leave are completely outside of his control, and it's okay for a woman, for example, sends you a message after days of silence that you've stopped pursuing. She might be doing this to test if you'll jump back into the conversation right away, rather than responding hastily. A Stoic man pauses and considers if he is excited or afraid of losing her. You may decide to react even if it doesn't fit with his ideals and objectives, but your response is composed. Measured and not motivated by a desire to win her approval or impress you, choose not to reply at all after recognizing that participating at that time doesn't serve your best interests, regardless of how you respond or don't. Reaction is not emotional, but comes from a point of inner strength. Impulsivity is a common mistake because we're taught that attempting to get her attention will somehow win her over, but frequently, pursuing her too much causes you to lose your Stoic man understands that he doesn't have to pursue his sense of power and self-respect. He is drawn to his value and wants to be validated or approved by others, not just women. Comes from within when you remain steadfast and isn't dependent on her love or attention. When uphold your boundaries, you're giving her a strong message and, more importantly, that your value is independent of her opinions or acceptance. Consider it this way. Avoid responding to every test or provocation. Like all women, you exhibit emotional stability and self-assurance. Attracted to power, not the power that comes from dominating others, but the power that comes from Stoic self-control, recognizes that there will always be difficulties in life, and determines whether the objective is not to avoid individuals or situations these difficulties, but to react to them calmly and wisely. A lady is unconsciously assessing your level of groundedness when she attempts to push your boundaries to see how you respond. She will emotionally sense that you're insecure and looking for her approval. But when you keep by being calm and upholding your principles, you demonstrate to her that you are in charge of this doesn't imply playing games or controlling the circumstance. Rather, it's about being true to yourself and confident in your identity. You're not ignoring her to win her over. You're just putting your own mental health first and self-respect. The Stoic guy ultimately understands that real strength originates from when a lady approaches him, he doesn't have to go after her, react, or prove anything. Pushes your limits. Use it as a chance to show off your strength. Not by teasing or controlling the circumstance, but by remaining steadfast in your values. This demonstrates that you can feel whole without her approval or validation. You possess the kind of strength that endures because you are whole on your own. As we conclude this discussion, consider how you have handled similar circumstances in the past. Have you ever sought approval in your own life, or have you been able to remain true to your principles? Keep in mind that awareness leads to growth. Thus, don't be hesitant to admit when you may have stumbled, but it's all a part of the process. I'd love to hear your opinions on this, so please feel free to share your experience in the comment section, or if this speaks to you, simply because I am in charge of what I do. Let's carry on the discussion as we proceed to the next. The fourth insight is looking for closure. Have you ever observed how looking for resolution, things abruptly change when you cease speaking to a lady? She looked too uninterested, but now she's trying to find answers by asking questions. Determine the cause of the issue. This is known as finding closure, and it's one of the most typical responses when you cut off contact with someone you were interested in. But the real question is, do you truly owe her that resolution? Consider the situation where you were exchanging texts. Perhaps she even went on a couple dates, but you felt as like nothing was moving further. Perhaps her vibe wasn't matching yours, or you sensed something wasn't right rather than pursuing you further. Days go by before she stops interacting and begins contacting you to inquire about the reasons. What happened to make you stop texting me? This is the time when many people feel the pressure to provide an explanation, but this is when the stoic attitude comes in handy. You owe no one an explanation that upsets your inner tranquility. Think of it this way. If you give her your tranquility and mental clarity, reopening a scenario that was just going to sap your energy at the time is what is meant by closure. Perhaps it's not worth it because Stoicism tells us that we are in charge of our own answers, rather than the expectations of others. A woman may look for closure. However, Marcus, you have the power to choose how much access you grant to your ideas, feelings, and time. According to Aurelius, you have control over your thoughts. External circumstances do not recognize this. In this situation, you will discover strength because the external event is her pursuing a close closure, but the decision you make about how you react is what really counts. Do you participate in a discussion that might bring up old wounds or drag you back into a circumstance you've moved past? Or do you, seeking closure is a normal emotion, so let silence be the resolution? However, it's crucial to keep in mind that closure doesn't necessarily call for a. Sometimes the most stoic thing you can do in a conversation is to maintain your composure by remaining silent, and letting the unresolved questions be the closure in and of itself does not imply aloofness or indifference, but rather preserving your health by avoiding all of the emotional demands. You keep your cool and use that as your fifth emotional compass. 5. Emotional reactions replies. Consider this. You have ceased pursuing her and you're no longer paying her the attention she deserves in the calls, texts, and discussions. Once from you, and all of a sudden the emotional change starts. You may observe she reacts in various ways, such as with rage, grief, or even relief. Human nature includes emotional responses, yet as someone who embraces Stoicism, you don't need to allow her feelings to control your behavior or your tranquility. Let's examine more closely how Stoic wisdom might help you get through this. The Stoics taught us that while if feelings are strong, they are fleeting, much like the weather fluctuates from stormy to calm. But her feelings of rage, despair, or relief is her own reaction to a shift in the dynamic and doesn't necessarily require an instantaneous reaction. As Marcus Aurelius once stated, you are in control of your thoughts, not external circumstances. Understand this, and you'll find strength even if she becomes irate when you put an end to your conversation with her. She may be venting to her or sending you angry messages. In times like these, friends, it's simple to be caught up in the storm and feel the need to defend oneself or give an explanation. But this is the Stoic approaching row. You maintain your composure and acknowledge that her rage belongs to her. You don't have to shoulder her emotional burden as epicus. The process is not yours to correct. In other words, what matters is not what occurs to you, but rather how you respond to it. Perhaps she sends a melancholy text expressing how much she misses you. Attention. You might be tempted to reach out and console her, but you should maintain your composure. Shows us the value of emotional self-control and inner strength. Her pain is real, but you don't need to intervene and try to solve the problem or fill the gap she's experiencing. It's her trip to travel. Allow her to go through that feeling without being enmeshed in it yourself. And then there's the likelihood that she feels relieved. Perhaps she was already retreating, and the choice to cease pursuing her is in fact in line with her desires. This can be unexpected, sometimes even harmful, but Stoicism provides another insightful observation. You have no control over her response. All you can do is interpret and answer it if her relief indicates that she is content without you being there. It's a clear indication of the current situation, thus you should accept it as a challenge to move on with honor. And this concept of control and awareness of one's inner self is the foundation of Stoicism. Your control, and when you stop, you have no influence over her reaction. Speaking with her, you can only manage how you handle her feelings. React to the circumstance? Do you allow her feelings to re-engage you? Dynamism, or do you remain steadfast in your choice? Understanding that your mental well-being is your first priority so that she will react emotionally the next time you stop pursuing her. Remember the Stoic lesson while you're feeling angry, sad, or relieved. Brief, but you can maintain your inner peace and concentrate on what you can. Control, release what you can't, and most importantly, keep your peace while you. When considering these feelings, it's important to stand back and think about how frequently we let other people's feelings control our own. This is an important area where, once you stop chasing, Stoicism may provide you tremendous strength because her feelings change, but how you respond to them matters more than how she feels. I thus urge you to pause before we discuss the next subject, to consider your personal experiences and how you have responded to, have you remained composed, or have these emotional changes in the past sucked you in? Enter the emotional maelstrom by leaving a comment with your ideas and observations. Issue and discussing it helps you not only comprehend it better, but also support a group of people that share your values on your journey of self-development. Let's carry on this investigation together. 6. Assessing your value number. 6. Assessing your value. Let's get started on something significant. That occurs when you stop pursuing her or speaking to her. She starts. When assessing their own value, many men become mired in their own minds, racing with questions like, does she still care? And does she notice it's normal to wonder what she's thinking about me now that I've withdrawn? Wonder, but this is where many men make mistakes. They begin to share her viewpoint, control their self-perception, but the reality is that your value is not reliant on the opinion of anybody else, not her. And this is precisely where we can learn a great deal about Stoic philosophy from it. Highlights the fact that your sense of worth and value originates from within you, based on your behavior, character, and degree of adherence to your values. It is not about how she responds to her thoughts or if she runs back. It all depends on who you are with or without her approval. Consider this while you cease pursuing her, which causes a change in her thinking. She starts to consider the relationship regarding you and begins assessing the part you've played in. Perhaps she considers the stability you provided in a way that you did not in her life. Allow external events to dictate your actions. But while she's doing this, you must be rooted in your own value and not rely on her to further define it. You rely on outside approval, whether it comes from her texts, her praise, or the more you deviate from the true internal power that Stoicism teaches, the more she notices. Us to ignore these outside viewpoints and concentrate on what's genuinely in charge of our behavior, attitudes, and principles. If you cease contacting her and there is suddenly silence, she is probably wondering regarding your identity and the contributions you made. Perhaps she's thinking about how you always seem so composed and stable, even when under pressure. Perhaps she's learning that you never allow the little things to shake you, and that demonstrated a strength that sticks out. But you're not sitting there while she's going through this mental process. You're concentrating on yourself instead of waiting impatiently for her next move. You're taking this time to think about your life and make sure you're meeting your own expectations, since that's where your true value comes from this. And the best part is that when you stop pursuing her, she has more room to. I wonder if she will begin to miss you, given the way you handle difficulties. With grace, or the manner in which you never allow your feelings to control you. At that point, she's reassessing you to see if you're worth pursuing. Return or not doesn't define you. She can't give you anything that would make you valuable. Take away, which is why Stoicism is so effective in situations like this. It educates, must maintain your integrity and not let other people's opinions change who you are. Consider the situation where you have withdrawn, ceased initiating, and she has now departed. Believing that she's assessing you and perhaps even seeing that you're not the type of man who is susceptible to emotional manipulation by the highs and lows of every situation that appeals to you because of your self-assurance, which is based on your ideals. Possessing a strong sense of self-worth demonstrates that you can feel good without seeking praise from others about yourself, which is why it won't cease when you quit pursuing her. Actually, it's a moment of power where you demonstrate your confidence in who you are. you are such that you don't require approval from others to feel worthy, is predetermined by the way you treat yourself, other people, and the lesson of Stoicism is to be consistent with your values. It's about being independent and realizing that the only validation you actually require is your own. So the next time you're in that predicament, whether it's with her or anyone else, keep in mind that your value is inherent and not dependent on whether she texts back to ask if she's interested in you or if she thinks you're useful. Once more, what counts is that you understand your worth and live up to it each and every day. When you do that, you're anchored regardless of whether she returns. On a far deeper level, your personal integrity and your dedication to upholding your values, much as the Stoics instructed number 7 to reach out once more. Picture this. You've halted 7. Making contact once more. No more late-night messages, no more arrangements to meet, no more pursuing her out of stillness. And then she eventually reaches out, possibly out of curiosity. Perhaps she's missing the attention, or maybe she's wondering why you've abruptly distanced yourself. But here's the thing. Do you immediately return when she reaches out again? Are you eager to pick up where you left off? Or do you pause and think? This is where Stoicism is useful, since it teaches us to refrain from acting on instinct or feeling, but to react to her calls with intention and logic. Don't let your emotions rule your actions. Sure, there may be enthusiasm or even hope that things will spark again, but Stoicism serves as a reminder of something important. Rather than seizing the opportunity, you have power over how you react, not her. To respond right away or to let her message throw you off balance, take a time to relax and consider what is actually making her point, and more crucially, how you wish to react to a Stoic man's actions. You're not intentionally seeking her approval or attempting to get back anything you've lost. Instead, you're seeking clarification in your own behavior and goals. For instance, let's imagine that she casually messages you, saying something like, "Hey, it's been a while. Are you the elderly?" You may have seen this as a call to return to start the discussions you've been missing again, but with Stoic principles this time, directing you to react coolly and without agitation, as I am doing. "Thank you, and I hope all is well with you. I'm short, courteous, and created by preventing yourself from being influenced by feelings or the expectation of. By reestablishing a previous relationship, you preserve your honor and stoicism and self-respect. Educate us to concentrate on the things we can control. You have no control over our thoughts, feelings, or behaviors, which is why she's reaching out or what she wants to get out of the discussion, but you have power over how you react. And your answer should always be a reflection of your inner strength rather than any need for her approval or a persistent attachment after you stop pursuing the women. Frequently observe changes in dynamics when the focus shifts, and many will reach out to see if their influence over you hasn't diminished. But when you apply, you're not playing that game anymore. Stoic wisdom. Your answer is replying from a AOA state of emotional equilibrium and self-respect, rather than a need for outside confirmation. So keep in mind to act rationally rather than emotionally the next time she contacts you. Keep your composure and sense of control. You don't need her to feel that way. Fulfilled, you already possess the power to fulfill all of your needs. If stoicism in relationships, you're not influenced by ephemeral emotions or motivated by impulses, help you be calm, grounded, and in charge of your actions at all times. Going ahead, pretend that you have ceased responding to number 8. 8. Going ahead, texting her, stopped pursuing her, and initially there's a feeling of doubt, perhaps even question what will happen next, whether she will notice, whether she will care. Yet here's the true metamorphosis doesn't start with what she does next. With you and when you quit chasing, this is where stoicism enters the picture. You're providing yourself with the opportunity to reclaim emotional self-control. No longer motivated by the desire for approval or attention, but rather concentrated on something far more profound, such as your emotional health, values, and self-respect. Strength, and believe me, this is the type of self-assurance that comes from within. We learn from Stoicism that our happiness doesn't originate from outside sources like her responses, focus, or approval, but from our own internal peace. Let's discuss what she might do if you quit pursuing her. She will reach out when she understands the significance of your absence, or perhaps she can begin to wonder why you've retreated and start to doubt things. Women are inherently perceptive and may even attempt to regain your attention. Curiosity is piqued when you cease providing them the same energy, but the important thing is what really matters is that you're not doing anything, regardless of whether you do or don't. No longer dependent on the result, you're not worried about whether she's responding to your texts or expressing interest. Rather, you are progressing, and this isn't merely about letting go of her. Its Stoicism urges us to let go of the need for approval from others, that we have power over our own acts, but not over the actions or feelings of others. Is our personal attitude and responses. When you stop pursuing, you're not contributing up on her. You're relinquishing control over the result you're accepting. The notion that you're okay regardless of whether she contacts you because your worth isn't dependent on her answer. Let's use a scenario where days pass and you realize you've been the one maintaining the conversation, so you decide to stop messaging her. There's silence at first and you question whether she's noticed, but then you begin to observe another thing. You feel lighter and aren't checking your phone. You're not overanalyzing or waiting impatiently for a response. Your every action rather than concentrating more on your own life and objectives. Perhaps she will ultimately text you back, but in either case, you're not. The beauty of being rocked is that you discovered serenity in the ambiguity. Stoicism. By letting go of attachment, you've changed the focus from her to you. By releasing yourself from the burden of worrying about the future, you're allowing yourself to live in the here and now. The requirement that things proceed a specific way because you're living in accordance with your values, which is the source of genuine self-assurance and respect at the end of it, doesn't important if you reconnect on that day. What matters is that you've acquired something a lot more worthwhile, such as emotional fortitude. You've discovered that acting in line with your convictions is the path to true dignity, not from pursuing the favor of others. As we conclude today's conversation, let's consider an issue that final results. Many people are frequently confused about what actually occurs when you decide to cease speaking with a woman's responses can be nuanced and varied. But what really counts is not much the response itself, but the way you decide to deal with the circumstance by practicing your answer while applying Stoic principles. Emotional control, reflecting deeply on yourself, and asserting your inherent worth can handle these difficult situations with dignity and respect. It is crucial to keep in mind that genuine confidence does not entail controlling other people. Instead, it's about controlling your own feelings and behavior. Self-control is essential to upholding dignity and is at the core of Stoicism. If the video today and the lessons it included were helpful to you, then respect in all of your interactions. To remain up to speed with more information like this, we encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. Your participation is greatly appreciated. Us develop and keep providing you with insightful conversations and advice. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Remain resilient, adopt a Stoic mindset, and until the next time, keep building your inner power.